Yeah, Pratik, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Thank you so much. A very good evening to those who are joining us from India. Good morning, good afternoon, if you're joining us from different parts of the world. I hope you're having a wonderful time taking care of yourself, moving towards your goals. Now, today we have gathered here for another fireside chat by Accords International, and happy to share that we have Jennifer Brandt with us today. Let me introduce you to Jennifer. First of all, thank you, Jennifer, for joining us and agreeing to have this conversation with us today. For our participants, Jennifer is an attorney, mediator, and founder of Brandt Law and Mediation LLC. For more than 20 years, she has specialized in alternate dispute resolution, primarily mediation in a wide range of cases, including commercial, civil, family, and family business matters. Jennifer serves on the court roster of approved mediators in civil and family matters. She is CEDR accredited and a member of the Global Mediation Panel, IMI certified, and a member of the National Academy of Distinguished Neutrals. Jennifer holds a Master's of Arts degree in International Relations with a concentration in conflict resolution. She trains and coaches judges and attorneys worldwide as a mediation ambassador and member of the board of directors of the Foundation for Sustainable Rule of Law Initiatives, US, which promotes court, annexed, and private mediation throughout the world. She is the founding member of Global Mediation Exchange Center in Jersey City, New Jersey, which provides international commercial mediation services. Thank you so much, Jennifer, once again for joining us. And regarding the session that we have today, I would like Upasana to share with our participants why we have picked up this particular topic. Upasana, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Akanksha. Jennifer, it's lovely to have you today with us. It's a privilege for us to hear what you want to say on this very relevant topic. I might say that I am a little unwell. Just for the participants, I'm saying the good part about an online meeting is that I cannot transfer this to any of you. So good thing that we're meeting on Zoom. So having said that, why reframing? Very quickly, let me just tell you that we all agree that conflict is unavoidable. Conflict, I think, is the only constant. And since all of us are so interconnected, effective communication is a very important tool for anybody to learn to make these relations and interconnections peaceful and beneficial for all of us, to create a conducive environment. Reframing as a tool makes you shift the perspective, improves your understanding, and look at the situation from a different angle. Maybe helps you in perspective taking, what from where the other person is coming, and to understand the situation and the conflict better. How is it useful in mediation? For the next 1 hour or maybe 70 minutes, we are going to listen to Jennifer to make us understand how reframing as a tool, as an effective communication tool, is important in mediation. So thank you, Jennifer, for joining us. Before I pose my first question, do you want to address the participants? Do you want to ask them to switch on their cameras? Maybe they'll hear you more than they will hear me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And thank you to both of you also for the very warm and welcoming introduction. I'm honored to be here. I would prefer to be there. It would be nice to be there as well and to see everyone in person, but we're in a new world and Zoom is a wonderful tool. I'd love to see the faces. If you'd like to turn on your camera, that would be great. It's always exciting to see young, eager, enthusiastic faces. And it's nice because I feel mediation is so wonderful and such an important process that I'm happy to impart my whatever limited knowledge I have. I have experience, I have knowledge, but it's a learning that you do your whole life. And even though you think, oh, I'm an expert, I never really think I'm an expert because each case can pose new challenges and you always learn from each other. So collaboration, networking, going to conferences, going to events, listening to other people's perspective, you always take away something new from it. So learning is a lifelong process and certainly professionally, but also for life. So mediation has very important life skills to provide. So thank you
I
again.
think. Thank you, Jennifer. And I totally agree with you when you say learning is a lifetime process. You cannot say that, all right, I'm done. So thank you for sharing that. And my first question to you is, let us start with your journey. How did you decide to be a mediator? Why did you choose mediator? And how is your journey so far as a mediator, if you want to talk about that?
Yes, I'd love to. It's near and dear to my heart. So I've been doing this. It's very scary to say to you because I've probably been doing it longer than many of you have been alive. Of course, I like to say I started as a child. But I started the very, very beginning when mediation, no one even knew what mediation was. They thought, is it meditation, mediation? What is it? I had been working in the law firm, a very large law firm, and litigation was what I was doing. And from the onset, I hated litigation. I never believed it was the best way to do it. And in particular, I was working in a field of litigation that had to do with a toxic tort. So it had to do with asbestos, which is a material that was used in a lot of important industries, from housing, insulation, shipbuilding, car brakes, and things like that. And it was very useful. But unfortunately, what they discovered over the years that breathing in asbestos, this was in the days before masks and before OSHA and, environmental groups, they found out that this breathing in this product would cause cancer, would cause other lung diseases, and it was toxic in the sense that people were dying from it. So I was a young attorney, and we would be tasked. When you worked at a big firm, most of the time you were a defendant. You weren't representing the plaintiffs who were injured. So I was one of the young attorneys who would travel to meet these people. So I'm not exactly sure in India if you have it, but we have discovery processes. We have depositions where you ask questions and it's recorded. Usually it's typed down. But in these cases, they were going to be video recorded because they didn't expect the plaintiffs, the parties who were filing the complaints, to be alive at the time of trial. So we would travel sometimes 2 hours because we had a shipbuilding industry in New Jersey many years ago. And we would travel to the homes of these people. They would be in a hospital bed in their living room. And you would have maybe 10 to 15 attorneys representing the different companies who made the products. And we would ask them questions. And one of the questions we would ask, there was a book of pictures of the label from your company. And you would ask them if they recognize it. Did you use our product? And if they couldn't recognize your label, you would then make an application to the court to get you out of the case, saying, well, it's too bad they have this, but it wasn't my client's product that caused it. And I remember thinking to myself, I was very sad for these people. These people weren't looking for millions of dollars. They were looking for enough so they could pay their medical bill, so they could leave something for their families, their wives, husbands, children. And they were spending a lot of money. I was thinking, how much money are these law firms paying us all these hours, all this money? And I just said, this is a terrible way to do it. So I started getting very cynical about litigation, and I felt there has to be a better way. And then probably in the late 1990s is when I learned about mediation. I was trained in mediation, and no one thought you could ever make a career out of mediation. But New Jersey, where I'm from, which is right next to New York, was a state that we started a pilot program to see if mediation was something good to have for the courts. So I was one of the original members to do that. We did it in only a few of the counties, and it was very successful in settling cases. And then it became a statewide mandatory program. So we're one of the few states, the numbers are growing, where mediation is mandatory in almost any litigation case. So at some point you can't settle your case, you will be ordered to at least try mediation for a few hours. But once I did mediation, I fell in love with it, and I never looked back. And eventually I did less and less litigation, and now I only mediate. So that's the short or long story version of how I became a mediator.
But I think no, thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. I think I can understand, although my experience as a mediator is in terms in terms of numbers of years is quite less in comparison with you, but I can totally connect with the feeling that as a litigation advocate, as an advocate, you realize that there can be a better option. There can be something
Yes.
better. The outcome can be better. So I can really understand from where you're coming there. So next question related to that is Jennifer, and anyone can please raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask the question if you want to ask Jennifer some question relevant to the topic, because this is a candid discussion. So please go ahead and do that. So Jennifer, my next question is, what is your style of mediation? And has it really helped? And maybe while answering that, you can talk about 2, 3 more prominent styles for the benefit of the audience, just naming them.
Yes. Okay. So, people talk about the different types of mediation. They talk about facilitative mediation. They talk about evaluative. They talk about transformative. So there are different types of mediation, but from my perspective, it's really a continuum. It's not like I only do facilitative, because there are times that you may have more evaluative approaches, even if it's just not by saying, listen, your case is worth X number of dollars or rupees, but even by the way you ask questions. So to me, I think it's kind of a continuum. So within the process, you may switch your style, you may switch your style of questioning as it's warranted. You do things differently when you're in a joint session than you might do in a caucus. Sometimes you meet with just the attorneys. You may say things very differently at that time. But one of the important things I think you need to do as a mediator, you need to be true to you and to your style and to your way of doing things. So they could tell you how to do it, but you also have to form your own individual style. So for me, I like a more informal style. I like a collaborative style. I like a friendly style. I like to use humor. I find humor can be a way of disarming people. It can be a way of connecting people. It can be a way of just breaking the ice and the stress and tension, because remember, they're often in litigation. They're certainly in dispute. There's high emotions. And sometimes the best way is to say something funny that's relevant. And so they jointly will laugh at something. So I think you need to choose your own individual, personal way of doing things, but you could be successful in any way.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And using humor as a tool by a mediator, I think it looks easy. When it is happening, it looks easy. But I think it takes a lot of experience and a lot of understanding of the process too. And also, you should understand the cultural context of both the parties if you want to use any humor there. So I agree. And interestingly, Jennifer, I asked this same question to almost every expert that we invite on the Fireside Chat, that what is your style of mediation? And despite having different schools, that transformative is different, facilitative is different, evaluative is different, every expert, every mediator says that you cannot distinguish. While you are there in the mediation process, you jump from facilitative to evaluative. And even the same answer was given by Daniel Weinstein, Ken Cloak, that so I think it's
Right.
interesting how practice is different from theory. So
That's right.
thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
Akansha, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to have a follow-up question from this. So I understand that when you are in practice, you cannot differentiate between different styles because you have to go with the flow, whatever parties or the process requires. So when you say you practice collaborative, you sometimes use sense of humor, could you share two examples of how and what you used in a particular scenario that maybe lighten up the mood, that changed the course of mediation process that was going?
Okay, let me think about that. I do want to just say one thing, that I think in general, as a mediator, the facilitative model is the one you're supposed to really try. And then, for example, there are so many former judges who do mediation, and I find often that their style is more evaluative. They wear the judge's robes, they wear they can't help themselves but judge. So, but there are times people need that and seek those kinds of judges. I'm trying to think of an example of, when you get to the phase of negotiating or working on numbers, then sometimes when you do, you might be more evaluative in the sense that someone say, well, I'm going to offer them $1 and the demand is $1 million. So instead of saying, you must be joking, that's crazy, you shouldn't do that. You say, well, what do you think their reaction will be if you make that as your first offer? Do you think that's going to be well received? Do you think that's a good idea? So you can be facilitated in a way just by how you ask the questions, because what you really want to say, which is, don't be absurd, that's a really bad way, because you're thinking it, but you have to always not put the judge's hat on, and you have to think that way. I have to think about a way that I try to be humorous about things. And I don't have a quick example, but I'm going to be thinking about it as we speak, and I hopefully will come up with a good example. But even just when you meet the people, just in finding out about them a little bit, I like to get a little bit personal. Sometimes I do in family cases where it's either a divorce, a custody, and also in family businesses. You really want to know about the family, and sometimes you'll ask to see a picture of the family or the children, or tell me about the family, tell me about your parents, your grandparents who founded it. So I find you try to be personal, and you also, that's part of the process of building rapport and getting to know people, and then feeling comfortable. Because also, if you get to the beginnings of the relationship, even if it's a business, like how did you become partners in a business? They look back on a positive time in their life, a time in this case before it happened, before the dispute arose. So you like them to tap into the good, because there was always good in any relationship. As you said, you can't avoid disputes, you can't avoid conflict, from families to any human relationship is fraught with difficulties and challenges. So I like to let them look back some ways, not in what did you do wrong or what happened or how did this fight occur, but tell me how you met. How did the business, how did the business work? Tell me a little bit about it. Tell me about the family. So I think that's important. I know I didn't answer your question fully, but I'm going to think about something funny, and I may come up with something funny while we're speaking, perhaps. We'll
Definitely. So just related to what you responded, Jennifer. So like you said, there are sometimes responses from the parties which you cannot straight away take to the other party because they may find it humiliating. Similarly to this, there might be some statements by the parties which are negative. So here reframing comes in. So how would you define reframing to our participants in mediation?
Okay, that's a good question. So reframing is a few things. Reframing is restating, in a sense, what they've said. It's clarifying what they've said. It's asking a more specific question about it. And in many ways, it's also neutralizing what they said. And neutralizing, not in a sense like you're destroying it, but taking some of the negativity away from it. Because there are a number of questions about that, which I know we're going to get to. But it's trying to make it as non-judgmental and non-critical. Because when people are criticized and attacked, and they feel personal attacks, it just escalates. So what you're doing, part of what you're doing is diffusing it, calming them down, taking some of the fight away from them. And words are very evocative. Words are powerful. So when people say things that are very harsh and harmful, it's like a dog, their back fur goes up. It's like, I didn't mean it that way. Or maybe they didn't mean it that way, but they're so used to it, or they're on a stage and they want to show that they're tough, or they want to show how angry they are. Part of that's venting. That's a whole other topic we could talk about another time. I'm sure you've had topics on that. So there's a reason they talk that way. It's posturing. Sometimes it's the attorneys who are very aggressive and very adversarial. So the job is the mediator, as the neutral person, the facilitator, is to try to take that away and to try to put common ground where they're not in the fighting mode. Like you're separating, in a sense, not necessarily physically separating, but you're trying each person's emotions to calm down, because people aren't as rational when they're very emotional. So you want to get them to get down to the business of negotiating and thinking of a solution. So I think it's crucial that you reframe, because it's very hard that you go through a mediation where everyone's just speaking so nicely and politely, because if they could speak that way, they wouldn't need you as a mediator.
So Jennifer, how can we sort of differentiate between reframing, neutralizing, and summarizing?
There's, just like we can't necessarily say there's, you follow facilitative, you follow evaluative. I think it's also a continuum. And I think it depends on how things are said. It depends on what you're saying. Neutralizing in the sense you want it to be, you want people to be able to understand what's really behind it. Like, why do you feel that way? Explain, why you're angry, or explain, how you got, how you came to feel this way, or what is it about what you say he or she did that upsets you? So you're always trying to get to the underlying issues and the underlying problems, and because that will set the stage for where the solutions could fall. You don't necessarily want to discourage them from venting or expressing their emotions, but in a joint caucus, you don't want to escalate it to the point where people don't even want to be in the same room because they're so hurt, they're so angry, that they just really can't get beyond it. And so you really want to get them to focus on what the issues are, what their real interests are. What are your interests? Is your interest really to insult this person, or is your interest to figure out a way that you part ways or you stay together? So that you're constantly doing that.
All right. And Jennifer, this is a question which students ask me also, and sometimes even I ask myself, that when to use reframing? When do you decide that, all right, it's time to, because there are so many articles online which says that you cannot use reframing early in your mediation because it can divert the track of discussion. So what is early? What is the right time to use reframing, or is there any right time at all?
Okay, it's a good question. I mean, when you ask, I assume, are most of you attorneys or the or students who are participating in the mediation process?
So
I don't know if
maybe, yeah. Are you asking about the participants here?
I'm just asking,
right
like
now?
for today, for example, because, lawyers think differently than other people.
So maybe we can have a quick.
I just wanted to know,
Yeah, maybe we can have a quick interaction with the participants also. All the students in the group can just raise your hands. Maybe you can just use the
replies in the chat box if you
yes.
want to write.
So you can write your profession in the chat box. So you can go for a professional student. You can put that in the chat box. We'll get to know. For example, I'm just writing in the chat box. Okay, we have law student in the chat box. All right. Then law student, we have quite a few students there. Great. Sonali, Mishti, Ayushi, law student, super. We have a few lawyers and professionals also, I can see. So you can write a lawyer, advocate. All right. I am a student from GLC Mumbai. Great. I participate in mediation competition frequently. Very nice. Anushka is a recent graduate. She's an advocate. Satyam is a law student. Super. Maybe we can have few more, 2 to 3 more. Very nice. Amarjot Bajaj is a professional. Very nice. Akshit is a law student. Super. So Jennifer, you can say that we have more students here, but yes, we have professionals and recent graduates also.
So within the legal profession, because as to be a mediator, you don't need to be a lawyer, but in the US, it is the most common profession that people come from, who become mediators. But there are psychologists, there are social workers, there are other professionals who do it. Other countries in Europe, I find there are many who are not mediators. I know bankers, I know an architect who's a mediator. So you don't need to be a lawyer. So part of it too is, the mindset of being a lawyer. especially in general, I really try to engage the parties, as it's important to engage the parties as much as possible, and not only the attorneys, who tend to dominate the process oftentimes. So I think I try to gather a lot of information that they could agree on. Like, when did this start? What's the date of the contract? How, as I told you before, how do you begin? So I try to elicit information, neutral kind of information from both parties. Sometimes early on in the process, it could become immediately adversarial. Like, you're a thief, you're a liar, you've been stealing from the company forever. Even though it's early in the mediation, you need to intervene in a sense. You need to reframe. You need to say, well, tell me about that. Well, why do you have that opinion? Are you concerned? Is your concern that you need more transparency? Is there your concern that you need an accounting? So there's a way. So it could be any time in the process that you need to reframe, anytime that you see things are not well received. Sometimes what they say, even if it's a negative statement, sometimes it's important. Sometimes the people don't know exactly the extent, or the attorney doesn't know exactly how the other person's feeling. So sometimes you can let some of the negativity and attacks, mild attacks, be said, because then you know what the issues are. And also, you then ask questions. You also elicit information, and sometimes in those negative statements, you could see really what the real issues are. They are so upset that they don't trust this person. So does that mean this person is secretive? Has this person been hiding assets? Has there been an accounting? Have they shared records? So some feel it in a sense, and you have to see the reaction, and you were constantly reading faces and looking at the parties.
Yep.
So I think that's important.
So, Jennifer, can we say that conversation is becoming more adversarial and more negative? Then there is a prompt that, yes, we can use reframing. If we want to take parties from their position to their interest and gather more information, then maybe reframing. So if for young students, we can point out 2-3 points, like, will I be correct if I say this?
Yes, I think you are correct. I think you're exactly correct. I think that's, you need to, as I said, when they say negative things or things that you feel need to be reframed, asking the question, how does that, I just have a couple of notes I wanted to take a quick look at. They're really saying. So that's why you need to reframe, because sometimes you're not clear. Does that mean you never want to see this person again? Or does that mean you really need them, you're hurt by it and you need them in some way to apologize or to refocus? It's a way to refocus them. And you really want to say, help me understand the problem. Tell me, what is it, what are your interests? Are your interests that a way to break through this problem that you've been having? So I think how you said it, I think is very good. And I agree with you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
So before, I think, Akansha, we can go to the next question. Can we invite the participants who have put the question in the chat box?
Yeah.
So Parth, would you like to ask your question? I see it's a big question. Can you ask a little one? As in, can you shorten it? Yeah, please go ahead.
Reframe it.
Reframe it.
Good evening,
Yeah.
ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. So
Hello.
my question is that, as you have previously stated, that you started mediation early on in your career. So sometimes when I have witnessed 2 or 3 competitions where I've seen the clients are expecting the mediator to act in a certain way or to speak in a certain way so as to so as to get a reaction from a mediator. In typically in a mediation competition, I'm asking. So that how is that something that you have faced in your practicing, or how to deal with it?
Okay, I'm going to have to reframe it. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. And are you saying that the part, and I have been a judge in many of the mediation competitions. Are you saying that the parties trying to engage the mediator, because we know that they get many points for doing so? engage them in the
Yes, ma'am.
sense of helping them, or engage them in the sense of taking their side or taking their position? Which way do you mean in terms of engaging the
Acting in
mediator?
a way of a bias.
Okay. Okay. So hopefully the mediator is not expressing any bias. Now, maybe inside, deep inside, they may have a bias, because I think people generally do have biases. And as much as we try to do away with that, I think you want to make clear that you're not biased, or at least not show that you're biased. And that is by treating everyone equally, in the sense, giving them equal time, not letting people interrupt, treating each other respectfully. And if they're accused of bias, then, you know, it gets, I have never experienced that personally, where they've said I've been biased. But you know, I think you just have to then dispel it. Say, listen, if I have expressed that, it certainly is not my intent. And I apologize if there's any bias, but it's really my trying to understand what you're feeling and what you're expressing. So you have to completely dispel that. And if you're too biased, where you feel someone is unreasonable, and there are times mediators have, you know, basically said this mediation is over, because there have been times where a party could be very disrespectful to the mediator. And I'm not sure you can overcome the belief. If someone has the belief that you're biased, you may never overcome it. So maybe you're better off saying, listen, I'm sorry you feel that way. It certainly is not my intent. I do not feel biased. I'm not here to judge. But if you feel that way, perhaps you could find, you know, maybe you should find another mediator. I think
Thank you so much.
you need to protect yourself and your professionalism, because
True, true.
you don't want to be too defensive either, because then it gets very strange, and you know, your trust, you may be really losing everyone's trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I agree. You cannot be
Yeah.
too defensive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
I think that answers your question also, Khushi. Yeah. All right.
Good.
Akansha, maybe we
Great.
can go ahead with the next question. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Parth and Khushi. Jennifer, this is with regards to the explanation that you gave for reframing. So when we say it is in nature of summarizing or restating what the participants to mediation are saying, or neutralizing their statements whenever they are injurious to the process. So there is a school of thought which says that, or believes that, reframing is kind of manipulating what participants to the process are communicating. Because maybe as a participant, I want my emotion to be expressed in a particular way. So reframing tones down the effect, tones down the emotion that I have within me going on. So what would be your response to the statement that it is a kind of manipulation only?
Okay. Well, there are a couple of very good questions in that. Number one, I'll get to manipulation after. I do think that it's important to let people vent to some extent, to a limited extent. So you might start by saying, well, thank you for sharing that. I understand that this is a very emotional process, or I understand you're very hurt by this, or you feel betrayed by this. You know, there's nothing, you could name what their emotions are. But again, you're always trying to get to their underlying interests. So you say, after you tell them that you understand, after you've heard them, because it's important, they really want to be heard and understood. That's very key. You say, okay, so you heard, you've expressed it, but are you also saying that, you know, you want to make sure that you're treated respectfully going forward, that your views are heard in the company, that you need to have a vote to determine how things will be done. So you acknowledge it, and you give them the satisfaction that they've expressed it, so the other side understands it. But then you say, well, what is it that you need from this? What is it that you're seeking? What will satisfy, you know, that emotional, you know, interest that you have, or that commercial interest, or whatever that is. Yeah. So I feel that as far as manipulation goes, it's a very interesting thing. I think what we do as lawyers, what we do as mediators, in a sense, it's the art of persuasion. It's the art of communication. We're communicators. We're facilitators. So is it manipulating to try to get people to come to an agreement that's their agreement? Is that really manipulative? Has such a negative connotation. You know, you're manipulating. But in a sense, as a mediator, I'm always trying to get the parties to come to a resolution. And sometimes they need to be led in a way, not necessarily I don't like to use the word manipulation, but they need guidance. And I don't even want to say being led to it, but they need guidance.
How about a nudge? A nudge.
A nudge, exactly. Sometimes you want to really give them a push, but yes, a nudge, a gentle nudge, and in a way that is respectful of their views and their opinions. But why is, if someone speaks really negatively and you want to sort of neutralize it, why is that more manipulative than someone using the process to be really aggressive and mean? Isn't that just as manipulative in a sense of trying to control the emotions? Is being more optimistic and positive, to put a positive spin on it, and I don't mean spin in a fake way, is that as real as someone who's just looking at the critical side? Now, I had a client who was so critical, so critical. So you'd say, look at my beautiful, the other side said, look at the beautiful new car. And what would the client say? The client would say, what's that scratch over there by the door handle? So I said to them private, why do you focus? The car is beautiful. There's one little scratch. That's what your focus is? They said, well, I want to be honest. I want to be realistic. I said, is that more real than someone looking at it in a positive way? Is the glass half full more honest than it's half empty? So I'm not sure. I think they're both honest. They're both real. And isn't it better for it to be half full? True. I mean, why can't it be? Sometimes the questions you ask are not why, but why not? Why isn't the glass half full? Can't they both be true? So, yeah.
I think, Jennifer, you have beautifully answered this, that it's not manipulation. It is that art of changing the perspective. That's what reframing is. So you are changing the perspective of the person to look at it from a different angle altogether.
Exactly. And to at least consider it. You don't have to change your opinion, but at least consider it, because part of what you do as a mediator is representing each person's side to the other side. Because if one person said it to the other, this is how I feel, they don't even hear it. They don't want to hear it. They can't stand them. But if the mediator says it in a way, they may hear it a little differently, because here's a neutral person who hears it and then restates it in a way that, well, maybe there is a different way of looking at it. Because I don't think things are absolute, black or white. There's a lot of gray.
True.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So now here, when we're talking about it, Jennifer, let's get to some effective example. So can you give an example of effective reframing in a mediation, which has been maybe from your experience or which have proven to be effective?
Right. Well, I mean, there's the old, it's sort of an old funny way of saying it, but there were people who would say, like, it's like, oh, when did you stop beating your wife? As opposed to, and, or when did you, why have you been stealing from me? So it got a little bit to the question of, well, tell me how the money is handled. Tell me if there are bank statements. Tell me if there's a book or register that someone could look at. Tell me if an accountant has done an accounting and is explained. Do you feel there are discrepancies? Do you feel maybe you need a professional to get involved in it? I'm going to give you another example, and this is sort of an everyday example of how to reframe it, not necessarily specific, but I think anyone could relate to it. So you're in a situation and you say to your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, anyone who lives within a household, haven't you fixed that door yet? Haven't you fixed that door yet? Okay. That's one way to say. How about, when are you going to fix the door, honey? How about, did you have a chance to fix the door yet? How about, I know how busy you are. I know it would be really great if you had a chance to fix the door. We're having a party this weekend, and it would be really great if everyone could see that the door is fixed now. Do you think you could do that? All the same thing. They basically want to know when the door is going to be fixed, when something's going to happen. But there are different ways of saying it. The first few ways, they say, I don't want to do it. Don't tell me what to do. Or, listen, I'm busy. I'll get around to it when I can. but the way you ask questions, and part of reframing is it's how you ask a question, how you state something makes all the difference in the world.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in the day-to-day, everyday life, sometimes even you realize that parents ask their children that it must not have been completed by you. You might not have cleaned your room, right? That's a question which is aggravating. Insistent. There's an instant reaction from the child that
Right.
yes, even if I've done, you are not believing me that I've done it. So I totally agree with you that the way you ask question is quite important in reframing. So another question, Jennifer, and this I think Kriti was the person who wanted me to ask this question from you. So is there a requirement for a mediator who handles reframing beautifully to be trained in psychology, some course, some understanding of psychology, or it's you learn through experience? So how relevant psychology is for reframing?
Well, psychology is a very interesting field, and there are people who are psychologists who do this, who are mediators, and we have something in, and I believe you have also collaborative law, where you have different professionals together as a team are helping solve the dispute, and there are often psychologists and psychologists or psychiatrists, people who are trained in those kinds of methods. I think you don't need a specific training for it. I think experience in life and experience in practicing law, experience in meeting people and working with many different kinds of people. It's life experience that gives you, I think, the basic skill sets. There are great books out there. There's great books, mediation books out there, which I know is one of your questions. And there are great examples that are given as to how to really look at it. And some people are clueless. I mean, I have to say, I know attorneys who are great attorneys, and they're just not great mediators because they don't like to deal with emotions. They don't like to really delve into what makes someone tick. Why are they thinking this, or what are your interests? I mean, you can learn the skills. I think some people have natural skills at understanding people. Some people are just more perceptive than others. But I think you can learn. And I think experience, of course, is the greatest teacher.
Yeah. So do you want to suggest a video or a book or an article, something that comes to your mind? I'm not imposing.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. So, I mean, everyone's probably read Getting to Yes. That's the classic. But there's another one that just William Ury has written called Getting Past No, which I think is a very good book. I think it's sort of under reviewed. And I also very much like Dwight Golan. I don't know if you know Dwight Golan, but he's Golann. He has a great book, Mediating Legal Disputes. That's a great book. And some of your former speakers and some of the people in your Accords International have some great books. I mean, Ken Cloak is very well known. Daniel Boland is very well known. How to Bring Peace to the Room. There are a lot of great books on it as well. And of course, you always hear war stories from mediators about how they did things and how things worked. So sharing those, and even we do some things with Foundation for Sustainable Rule of Law Initiative, which we work, and we do something where we do reflective meetings where people talk about how their mediation went and what the problem was or an impasse happened, and discuss it, and people critique it, and people give insight and input and recommendation as to maybe how they would handle it. So that's part of the networking that we've also tried to do at mediation centers, or even in new places, like where we go, where people are newer mediators, to really tap into the experience of the more experienced mediators. So we have, even when you get trained in mediation in New Jersey, there's also a mentorship requirement where you have to observe, or you mentor someone for a certain number of hours, or they watch you do it, or they mediate and you critique them and help them. You co-mediate as a training process. I know co-mediation is bigger. India has a lot of co-mediation. Brazil has a lot of co-mediation. We don't have a lot of co-mediation in the US, but it can be a great training tool. So I've done some of that in as a mentor.
Yeah. And I think we have Victor from FSRI, who is
Yes.
one of the trainers in our upcoming training in
Oh, great.
June. The link
That's-
for the training, we will be sharing it in the chat box. The training that we are going to do for the mediators in June 2023. So it's a brilliant thing. The reflective circle that you just mentioned, Jennifer, that the new mediators can be a part of that meeting, reflective meeting, and through the discussion, the seniors can also, everybody can ideate, and the seniors and the fellow mediators can give their input. It's such a brilliant thing. And I think something like that should happen in India as well. And if you're
Yes.
doing it virtually, I would love to join. I don't want to
Well, you
miss
could
the
talk to Victor
opportunity.
about it. We've done it at
I'll
camp
definitely,
in Bangalore
I'll
with
def-
a number of
yeah.
I participated in that as well. So yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
Nice. So amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. And I totally agree with you. I think deliberation, collaboration, and discussion, these three things are important to develop in any profession, be it an advocate or a mediator or any profession. So thank you for sharing that. Another thing, Jennifer, before we reach our conclusion, we're almost arriving towards the end of the program. So what is the advice that you would like to give to new mediators who are just learning reframing, and who are just, although you have answered part of it in your last answer, but if you have some specific advice there for the
Well,
new
I think
mediators?
one of the ways of doing it is start at home. Start thinking about how, you have problems, at home all the time, friendships, siblings, parents, children, spouses. Start thinking when they say things, because here's an example of, how it could be a cycle. Why do you spend so much money? Well, what about you when you went out for dinner and you took all your friends out? You go back and forth, you nitpick, you fight about the past. But sometimes you say, you're right, that was too expensive. I really shouldn't have done it. But maybe how do we come back to a budget? But maybe start by thinking about in your everyday lives, whether it's, students, whoever it may be, when they say something that's offensive to you, or you're getting in an argument with someone, how could I say it in a way that they're not going to react so harshly or not escalate it? Because many times we want to escalate, we want to retaliate, we want revenge because they said something mean to me. So think about it, even just doing it on a daily basis. And of course, in your work, reading the books and practicing, if you're doing practice mediations, if you're going into the competitions, you'll get experience doing it there. But the more you do it, and you'll see it's a very positive reaction you'll get. So I think that's a good way to consider starting.
Yeah. And I think I would like to add there, Jennifer, if we overdo it, then the family members, they realize that
Yes.
you are doing it.
Right.
Then they,
It has to be.
then
Don't use that psychology on me. Don't do that. Don't
But I think
manipulate me.
yeah, I agree when you say that reading is important, because I think there is no substitute of reading at all. Reading articles, reading books,
Mhm.
reading relevant text, literature there present in the field of ADR is very important to understand. I totally agree with that, Jennifer. So there is one more thing that I generally, there are these three questions which I generally ask my guests. So who are your two favorite communicators and why? Since we are talking about communication,
Okay.
who are your two favorite communicators and why?
Okay. So, they're not recent, but I actually, and they're from long ago. Obviously, Franklin Roosevelt, for whom this fireside chat is mentioned, was a great communicator at a time in the world was really in a shambles, and it was the World War, and how he communicated and how he really, brought the people together. And that was really, he was great, as was Winston Churchill. And of course, Gandhi, of course, was really one of the great ones. So, sometimes they're leaders, sometimes they're clergy, like Martin Luther King. What he said, so many things that were said still rings true today. But it's interesting. There's a quote of Winston Churchill I wanted to bring about, and it goes back to when I was talking about Why is it more real or less manipulative if someone's being negative than if you're reframing it in a positive way? And part of it is like, the art of diplomacy, the art of being tactful. Everyone likes someone who's tactful. And Winston Churchill defined tact as the ability to tell someone to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the journey. So,
Oh, nice.
so I think that, and they present it in, so that's to me is what you do as the mediator, is to help them go to a place where they should settle, where they want to settle, help them find what that place is, help them discover it by taking away a lot of the other stuff that stands in the way of their own best interests.
Nice. I think I'm going to use that quote. Very nice. So Jennifer, another question. So if you want to put 3 slides when you're talking about reframing, what are the 3 slides that you would put in your PowerPoint presentation when you are taking a class on reframing or maybe discussing about reframing?
Okay. And this also goes to what some of my quotes are, because there's a little bit of an overlap on this. I mean, one of my favorite things is that it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And to me, that's really defined, and that is the meaning of reframing. How you say something, it's like the tact. It's not like saying, go to hell. It's how you say it in a way that's inviting, that's encourages dialogue, encourages brainstorming, encourages problem sharing. So I think that's one of them. I'd say trying to ask a question in a neutral way, So that's another one. Like, I want to be sure I understand that, or to explain, tell me why you feel that way, or what is it that, how will this help you? And how do we seek, what, is that your interest is, try to tell them what their interest is by what they've already said. Like when someone's calling someone a thief. Are you concerned that you haven't had the transparency, or are you concerned that the documents haven't been available to you? So I think asking neutral questions, asking questions, open-ended questions.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be my,
All right,
I happen
thank you.
not to be a slides person. I happen not to do PowerPoint, but maybe that's generational. I'm not sure. But that's just.
No, that is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I think great. And last question, Jennifer, would you like to give us a quote for the day?
Yes.
Your favorite.
Yes. Where there's a will, there's a way.
All right.
If there's no problem that can't be solved, if the parties put their mind to it. I truly believe that. Whether it's a world political conflict, whether it's a problem in a family, whether it's a problem between business partners, it can always be solved, because it can be. And an optimism. I always believe in optimism and expressing that optimism throughout the mediation process. This is a great day for mediation. This is a great day to move forward. This is a great way to put this dispute behind you so you move on with your lives. This is a great way that, you could do business together, because if you're locked in dispute, no one's making money. No one's doing business. There's a great way you could still be, partners in the family business that your grandparents started. So always an optimism, I feel, is a very important thing.
I think I agree. I agree to that. And how where there is a will, there's a way. So this saying we must have heard a lot many times before. Also, but the way you're connecting it with being super optimistic during a mediation, and a mediator should be optimistic, that's a brilliant connection, and I'll keep that in mind. And I think thank you for sharing, Jennifer.
Oh, yes, you're
Yeah.
most welcome.
Yeah. So we still have 5 minutes with us, and if somebody wants to unmute and go ahead and ask Jennifer a few of your final questions. 2 things, we are going to share a link in the chat box, which will ask you to suggest topics which you like for us to do in the next upcoming fireside chats. So please go ahead and click on that link and do help us out in creating interesting fireside chats for you. And another is we're going to talk a bit about our upcoming training. So we would want you to stay back for like 10 minutes after we say goodbye to Jennifer, and we're going to talk about the training with you. So if any question you would want to go ahead and ask Jennifer, anybody who would like to unmute. Yeah, we have Karthik. Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, ma'am. I guess I just want to confirm if I'm audible.
Audible.
So first of all, thank you for conducting this webinar. It was very helpful as I have an upcoming competition in few days. Uh, Ma'am, I would like to ask that what's the purpose of sharing a confidential information in a caucus if you do not want it, you do not want the mediator to pass it on to the other party? Because as per the competition rules, even the mediators cannot make a suggestion, like suggestion in respect of a solution they cannot offer. Solutions are usually like promoted to come from the parties involved. So what's the purpose of sharing a confidential information with the mediator?
Okay. Well, first of all, the mediator may ask you, can I share this with the other side? Or can I not share this with the other side? What I have done when people have asked me, given me confidential information, I asked them questions. I said, well, do you think that will help move the process? Do you think it will be important for them to understand this information that will help you find solutions? And if you think so, I think maybe you should consider telling them yourself, because then you are a part of that. One of the things you're also judged for is brainstorming, coming up with ideas, finding information out. So sometimes it's a very brave and bold move to share that confidential information because it can move the mediation forward. So one of the questions you may want to ask the mediator is, do you think I should share this? And they could, and they will answer, say, do you think this is important? Do you think I should share it? And I think the mediator, I don't think there's any, they're not really telling you what to do. You've asked them a question and they may say it by saying, well, do you think that will be helpful? Maybe they'll understand your perspective, and maybe that'll set the grounds for some, creating ideas, creating solutions, because that's another way you're judged. So I think it's a good question to ask the mediator. But again, use the mediator. Don't have a caucus for no reason, just because, you could check that box in the competition. Ask them because you want to really get some information, and it shows that you're thoughtful that to move this negotiation further, that maybe I should reveal it. And so you ask them. Okay.
Hope that
Thank you
answers
so
your
much.
question.
Yes, I hope that answers.
Yes, it does.
Brilliant. Very nice. It was an interesting question. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Khushi, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So my question is regarding the soft skills only. Being a law student, while doing moods, we got a tune of, arrogant tune while we are talking or every time. So being a enthusiastic learner about mediation, I always scared, like if I talk something which is being very in a taunt way. So how to develop the soft skills while reading? Of course, I understand that, or I learned what ma'am has said right now, that we should talk in a daily, in a soft way to develop that. But how to develop a soft skills while reading while reading books or something like that?
Well, when you read it, see if you can apply that or that example they've given to anything that you've experienced in your life. I think also if you have an opportunity as a student to observe mediations, there are mediation centers throughout India, and to see if you could even intern or if you could even sit in on some of them. Take any mediation course, any program that you can. Competitions are really a great experience. So you just, even if you do terribly, you're learning. And so from the first round, I found so when you do this, from the first round to the later rounds, the amazing improvement that's happened, because you also get feedback. So even though you have to be a little bold, even if you're nervous to do it, the professionals who are judging you or observing are going to give you feedback. And they're going to tell you what you did right, what you did wrong, how you can improve it. So that's another great. So MAIMS, we know, is having a great competition coming up. That's a great one to join if you haven't already joined it. Just jump in. Don't be afraid that there's no point where you just say, I'm done, I'm ready. Do it even before you're ready, because that's part of, it's like the first time you go to court. You're a lawyer, you pass the bar exam. You don't know what you're doing really, because you haven't had the experience. You just go in, you ask people for help, you watch, you go to court and watch, you go to a mediation center, see if you could observe. There are videos on mediation. Some of the books, I think Dwight Golan's book may have a CD that you could see, role plays. And in a lot of mediation trainings, you have to do role plays. I just taught a course to lawyers. We have a 40-hour training course that we do over 5 days. And then those people, after they've completed certain tasks, plus been mentored, plus observed, then they could be on the court roster. Do whatever trainings, do role plays, and you'll get there. You'll get there.
So Jennifer, interesting that you said that, because even in our trainings, we realized that the difference between advocates and participants on day one and when we are winding up and when they are sitting in their assessment, it's such a huge difference that the day when they start making their first opening statement to the day when they are doing their complete mediation in the role plays, in the training, during the training, it's such a huge difference. So I think more, it's when you realize that, yes, you have to take off that adversarial hat and wear that collaborative mediator's hat. That's half battle won, Khushi. So since you have already realized it, I think you've already achieved 50% of what you want to achieve. And remaining what Jennifer has said, that you have to learn through experience in reading and observing.
And we all make
Thank you.
mistakes. We all make mistakes. And that's how you learn. You learn
Yeah.
as much from the mistakes that we make as we do from the successes.
I totally agree with you.
If not
Akansha
more.
wants to.
Yeah.
Thank
If I
you,
may
ma'am.
add something,
Sure.
taking from what Jennifer mentioned, that start from home. One of the best thing about mediation and the skills which are involved in mediation is that every skill, whether it is negotiation, whether it is communication, every skill you can practice in your daily communication, whether you are in your college, whether you are at your own home, whether you are sitting with your friends discussing on any topic whatsoever, whether it's law, whether it's the movie you want to watch together, whether it's the book, which one's best, everything relates to the skills which are involved in communication. And the way we deal with all the sessions, it's like a life skill which we are teaching. And it's said, and it's noted everywhere that mediation makes you best human. So learning mediation, getting into training profiles can, and over the time, it's not just it's one training that's going to make you the best mediator. It is something that you have to practice every day with every person you are interacting with. So that takes time, but that's certainly important. Even if you're not going to be a mediator, just any profession you want to be with. And that's why when we talk about our trainings, we keep it open to any field. Anyone who is, whether a student, a professional, a teacher, it's open to everyone, from people from different backgrounds.
I agree. And Jennifer, I think restorative justice is one step, maybe I'm not saying ahead, but maybe more more transformative in nature, more emotive in nature, because my interaction with restorative justice is like 2 years old. So now, after understanding restorative justice, after mediation, it is more, you realize how to repair relations, and it's also an interesting journey. I think restorative justice is also something. AcIn'S International is working in restorative justice, so that is something. Yeah, we do monthly reflective circles also, where we have restorative circles open to for anybody to join. We have to follow few guidelines of a restorative circle, and then it's open for everybody to share. So it's very interesting. So, but Jennifer, I would not want to take more of your time. And it was really, really, really nice of you to join us. And the entire session was super educative, and I learned a lot. And it happens with me in every fireside chat. I end up learning a lot. So thank you for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. So we're going to wind up in like 5 to 7 minutes. We have shared few links in your chat box. All of you know that AcIn'S International, this fireside chat is organized by AcIn'S International. Hope all of you knew that when you joined it. So AcIn'S International is an organization. We work in the area of conflict resolution and dispute resolution, focusing on mediation and restorative justice. So let me just share my screen with you. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, it is starting.
All right. Is it visible?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So this is, if you will visit our website, it's AcIn'S International. See, it's AcIn'Sinternational.org. You can visit our website. We'll share the link in the chat box also. We generally have monthly fireside chats, masterclasses, boot camps on anything ADR, particularly mediation and restorative justice. This was the event under the banner of Fireside Chat. We have launched the mediation training, which is the June cohort, June 2023. If you visit the website, you will see the link to the training on the homepage itself. If you click on apply now, consider it a no more button, then you get on the training page. Here, Victor is one of the members of FSRI, the organization which Jennifer is a part of. You can look at the brochure, you can look at the flyer, it's there on the website. So ours is a completely online training. What I'm interested in talking about here is that we have also launched a special opportunity program for students. So when you go to apply now, there is this special observer program that you see. It is a program for students, which we have launched, where students will be, it's like 50 to at 40% of the rate. You're gonna attend all the expert sessions and observe all the role plays. So even if you are not in a position to pay for the entire training, you can join the training as an observer and you can attend the expert sessions, you can interact with the experts, and also you can observe the role plays. You sit in the assessment and get the certificate of practice as a mediator upon successfully passing the assessment, but midway also any of the observer can convert to the full training. So the deadline for this upcoming training is, the early bird deadline is April 20. And our that's the early bird registration fee, around $16,200 US. And the training is in collaboration with Foundation for Sustainable Rule of Law Initiatives, the Jennifer's organization, and Mediation Academy South Africa. And we are accredited by ADR Register Amsterdam. It's an internationally accrediting organization. So you can know more about the training. You can visit our page. Prateek must have shared the link. And also we have shared the link for you to suggest us what topic should we go for the upcoming fireside chats. 2-3 fireside chats we have already lined up, but this, after discussion with our board, we have decided that even the participants can suggest something interesting, what you want us to organize the fireside chat on. So any questions that anybody would want to ask before we end the meeting? It's like anyone can unmute and ask. All right. It's getting late, almost dinner time. I'll not hold you back. All the best, guys. Karthik, I know you're going for your competition, so all the best for your competition. So nice meeting everyone.
Thank you so much.
I'm ending the meeting for all, Akansha.
Yeah, all right. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, ma'am.